Good afternoon. Welcome to today's CI Tools webinar. My name is Josh Osborne, and I'm the product manager for the CI Tools here at Central Innovation. Welcome to our weekly CI Tools webinar session where we look at things to do with the CI Tools. We normally go over something, sort of an introduction to a certain tool. Sometimes we dive into more advanced topics or questions that have come through recently and that sort of thing. And sometimes we'll be looking at new stuff that's being developed. So today we have a little bit of a mixture of things to look at. We are going to we're going to start off by looking at electrical schedules. So I had someone the other week asking about electrical schedules. We didn't get time to show it in the electrical webinar we did a few weeks back. So we are going to start by looking at electrical schedules, just how to create those and customize them a bit using the interactive scheduler. And then we are going to look at a new piece of development, which is a new object that we're adding to our Launchpad tool. Which is a extremely configurable cable tray object. So we're going to have a look at that after this. And then if we also have time, we'll briefly talk about the other things that are in Launchpad, just as a sort of reminder for anyone who may not be using that already. So getting started though, we're going to look at the electrical tool. I'm going to be working in ArchiCAD 28 today. Everything that we look at in the electrical tool also applies to older versions as well. There's nothing that is a new feature or anything that we're going to be looking at today. With the Launchpad tool, that will be in ArchiCAD 28 only to start with, at least. It's also not released at this stage. We are still finishing up development. I just wanted to show it during this session so that you can get an idea of what we're working on and send some feedback maybe, and just see what you think, see if it fits with your workflow, if it does what you want. If it doesn't do what you want, what kind of things might we be able to add to it just before release to put it over the last hurdle to make it useful for you or something like that. But yes, we're going to be working in ArchiCAD 28 for electrical and Launchpad. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place some electrical stuff down and very quickly give an overview over how that works for anyone that missed the original. So I'm going to grab the electrical tool here, and I'm just going to go and grab a bunch of things to place down. I'm not going to jump through the settings or anything, so I'm going to place a switch. So I'm just holding down the space bar to click and have it auto rotate and snap to my walls. I'm going to place a special switch down or something. I'm just going to place down enough of these that we have a bit of variety showing in our schedules. Grab some PowerPoints there and there, I think. And then some data points as well. Those next to the PowerPoints. Okay, and let's put another switch. Make this one a double. Over here. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to schedule these up. I could put them into a circuit or anything like that if we like, but that doesn't affect our schedule, so we'll leave them as they are for now. And what we're going to do is we are going to open up our interactive scheduler. So from the schedules section in your project map, we're going to go to elements schedules, and I'll just open up one of these ones that's here because we just want to open up the interactive scheduler. We're not interested in openings at this point. Now, as it happens, this project already has the electrical schedules in it, but I'm going to import them from scratch just so that you can see how that works. So we'll open up the scheme settings so that we can get into the area where we manage our different schedules. And down at the bottom here, we've got our import and export buttons. And I'm going to click import. And then I browse to my Graphisoft ArchiCAD 28 folder and then go to CI Tools Extras. This will be installed when you install the CI Tools, so you should already have it there. Select CI Tools Extras. And then we've got two XML files there, which are the electrical legend 28 and the electrical schedule 28. So we're going to grab both of those. So actually, can I do multiples? I can. import those. Now it's going to tell you that these were exported from an older version. That's fine. It's just a warning letting you know that they're from an older version, but we're not losing anything, so that's okay. We click OK, and then we'll get our two electrical schedules come in. So electrical legend and electrical schedule. Mine have added 0 ones in the end because the existing ones have exactly the same name, but this is what we'll show, and they look like this in our settings. So electrical legend will have some criteria defining it as electrical elements, objects belonging on a layer with electrical in the name, or lamps. So objects on the electrical layer, electrical elements or lamp elements will be included in this. Oh, sorry, the lamp elements also have to be on the electrical layer, but yeah, bracket starts here. So those two on that layer and anything with the electrical tool assigned. And it's going to schedule up the preview, a custom description, and a user-defined field. And then electrical schedule works similarly, so it's collecting anything that is an electrical element and any lamps or objects that are on a layer which contains the word electrical. So it's going to collect up all of those. So that's how you can place the elements that you want to show in your schedule if they're not electrical elements. So long as they're on a layer that has this word in it, you're good to go. Obviously, you can customize these as well. So if your electrical layers aren't called electrical, they're called ELE or something like that, just swap in whatever you need there for your criteria. You don't have to use these exactly as they are. They're just intended to be an example to get you started and sort of the way that we use them so that you can see how we do that. And we're listing a whole bunch of stuff here. So let's have a look at these. So electrical legend. Did I hit cancel on that? I did. Let me just import those again so that we have those. There we go. All right, so opening up electrical legend 01. So you can see we've got something here. It looks like a maybe a lamp or something, which is obviously sitting on an electrical layer. And then we have the electrical symbols that we just placed. So we've got a jack point, power point, a key lock switch, a regular switch, and then a double switch here. So those are all scheduled. So this is our legend view. So we're not seeing any additional data about how many there are or what their manufacturer is or anything like that. This is just the legend. So you can see the description is sourced from the element itself and just describes what has been put into it. So a PowerPoint with the switch above, it is 2 gang, and it is horizontal or vertical as our H's and V's there. So that's the sort of code that the objects, the elements, electrical elements automatically give themselves when you place them. So we have those all showing there, giving us a nice electrical legend, and then the electrical schedule will give us additional data. So you can see we have our room first, so that is the zone name, related zone name there. So a couple of those are in our kitchen zone over here. Looks like 2 of them, this one here and this one here. And then the rest are in our living zone. So we show the symbol as we did before. We have the quantity of each listed here as well. So we've got 2 of a couple of those and 1 of the rest. The manufacturer, which I haven't specified in my elements, but that will show there if we have those. And then we have our code, excuse me, showing here. So this is an internally generated number again. And this is what will make electrical symbols different to each other. So we schedule this one just so that we can make sure that we are, when we do a collation of numbers, it's not sticking together elements that are actually different. So for instance, this switch here and this switch here are both technically the same object. So if we were to collate it and we're only using the object name, these two would get collated together and they shouldn't be. So we use the code to handle that as well. So you can see they both are using this 1111 code, which essentially just means that it's a switch. You don't need to worry about what the codes actually are, but these will be different depending on what's in the switch. So you can see the additional info on this one to tell it that it's actually a 2 gang switch is in there. So it makes it separate to this single switch element here. So we're going to hide this one because we don't want to actually see that in most cases. And then the description is the same as what we saw in the legend, and it's essentially a text version of what this code here is. So you can see switch 1 gang V, switch 2 gang V, those two are showing there. So what we can do once we are happy with our schedule looking the way that we want it is that we can turn off those bits that we don't want to see. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to hide this one here and this one here. Okay, so now we've thinned that down, so it still cares about those, so it's going to keep our collation working, but we don't have to see them on our actual schedule. And if I want to show the manufacturers, we can do that too. So let's turn that on for some of them. So if I go into the product data, we can enter a manufacturer in here. Enter that manufacturer. Okay. If I go back to my schedule, you can see that our manufacturer comes through on that element. So you can fill in that data on your electrical elements and have it come through to the schedule as well. So yeah, so this is a good sort of starting point for you to build your own electrical schedules up. You can do whatever you like with them. Obviously, they're not locked or anything weird like that. It's just a starting point for you to build your own. So you can change the criteria and add additional criteria. Maybe you have multiple layers you want it to monitor, and you can add additional fields as well. So for instance, the manufacturer is in there by default, which is picking up this field here. Maybe you want to pick up also the cost or the voltage or the current rating or something. You can put any of those, and we've also got a note field that you could use as well. And it will be able to pick up all of those and show them in your schedule. And any change you make to these obviously will reflect in the electrical schedule. So that is the electrical schedule. So just a reminder, go into the interactive scheduler, hit scheme settings and hit the import button. And then we want to go to ArchiCAD 28 or whatever version you're in, CI Tools Extras, and then bring in the legend and schedule, and then further customize them based on that. Pop them into your template, whatever you want to do. And you can control all of that in here. All right, let's switch across to the new object. I'm just going to quickly pause this and see if we have any questions before we continue. Just a moment. All right, it looks as though we don't have any questions yet. So let's move on to the new object. So as you may already know, with the release of ArchiCAD 28, we've reorganized some of the tools a little bit. And we also introduced a new tool called the Launchpad. And this is a free tool that anyone can get. You don't have to be a subscriber. All you need to do is have a MyCI account to actually run the installer to get it on your machine. But it will work for anyone at all. Maybe as a way to introduce you to how the tools work or something like that. But the idea with the Launchpad tool is it is the area where we will be putting sort of new things that we're trying out to see what people think of them, to see if they fit people's requirements and that sort of thing. Once we have gathered feedback on how they work and that sort of thing, they may migrate into another tool. We will keep the version that we release in Launchpad in the Launchpad. So if you start using it, don't worry that we'll suddenly decide it's too good to be in Launchpad and move it away. If we do move it somewhere else because it sort of graduates into its own tool or something, we will do that with essentially a copy of that one. We'll leave the old one in Launchpad. So you don't need to worry that you're going to lose anything that we're putting in there. And so with the release of ArchiCAD 28, we launched the Launchpad tool with a new function called Migrate Library Parts. You may have seen, I talked about it in a couple of webinars when we released it, but if you haven't come across it before, essentially this function will allow you to automatically migrate library parts. So as you may know, with ArchiCAD 28 moving to the libpack format for libraries, which we can see in our library manager. If you migrate an ArchiCAD 27 or older project, you'll still be using your old LCFs rather than new lib packs. There are, in most cases, you will want to keep doing that. You'll want to keep loading the old LCFs, so you can just keep doing that. But there are certain instances where you will want to migrate those projects. Say you have a lot of projects running in an old version and you need to bring them all up to 28, but you want to also make sure that you're using all of the latest V28 stuff. That is a good reason why you might want to be able to migrate. There's a number of reasons why you might want to do it. Essentially, we're just giving you the option to be able to do it. So the way that normally you would do that would be that you would remove your LCF libraries, put the lib packs in instead, and then you would have to go around all of your placed objects and switch them out for corresponding versions in the lib packs, which obviously can be a bit time consuming. And so that's where our launchpad function comes in. Essentially what it will do is it'll find all of your objects that are placed using the old library, and it will migrate them to the libpack libraries instead, so that you don't have to do that all manually throughout your projects. So if you are, for whatever reason, actually needing to do a full migration of a project, you don't want to keep using the LCF for some reason. And again, in most cases, you don't need to worry about doing this. This is just for the certain cases where you do. This will help you with that. And as I say, it's part of the Launchpad tool, which is free, so you don't have to buy anything from us. You can just try this out, run it on one of your projects in a copy, obviously, first, to see if it does what you're expecting to do. And that will, we think, be pretty helpful. So that is what we launched with the Launchpad tool a couple of months, almost half a year ago, in fact. And now we're going to be launching a new object in the Launchpad, which is our cable tray object. So this is something that we've been working on for a little while. I'll reset that to default settings. And what the idea is that it is a cable tray, which is extremely configurable as to where it goes and how the path of it works. So you can see in my preview here, it looks like a pretty standard cable tray in a T shape. And it's not till we place it down that you'll see how much we can do with it. But before we do that, we've got a couple of options. So we've got a pressed metal tray or a ladder tray option. And then we can control how each of the parts of the cable tray works. So we've got the actual tray itself, we've got the reducer, the bends, the T dimensions, and then the risers as well. So we can define how each of those works, which you'll see in a moment. And then we can go ahead and place our cable tray. You can also choose if you want to show a basic symbol or a full detail symbol. I'm going to work with basic now just because it's easier to see what's going on with that. So I'll leave everything as is. We'll hit OK, and then we'll place this down. And what you're going to see when I do that, let's go over here, is we get a cable tray in a T shape like you saw before. But once I select it, you will see a fairly large amount of dynamic hotspots on it. And this is how you will edit the cable tray. I know that it looks like quite a lot, but once you see what they do, it will make sense. So essentially, we have 4 edges on this at the moment. So we've got one edge here, then we've got a junction and a second edge here and here, and then a third edge attached to the second edge up here. And each edge has a number of hotspots in each one. So you can see roughly the same amount of hotspots is available on each. And that is the reason why. It's because a lot of these hotspots do the same thing. They just do it on the edge that they are showing on. So let's start with this edge on the right side here. And we'll start off with the first hotspot, which is this one here, and will allow us to adjust the length of that edge. So you can see as I move this out that it's resizing the edge that is it attached to. So we can change the size of our edges using the first hotspot here. The second one will allow us to adjust the size of the reducer. So you can see in my preview here that it is showing where the reducer will be. So if we want to reduce at this point, we draw to the reduction amount that we want and then click, and then the same on the other side. So the matching hotspot on the other side will give us a reducer inward there as well. So we can reduce in whichever direction we need to. the next hotspot on the edge is to create a split in this edge. So to turn it into two edges for whatever reason. Obviously, there's plenty of reasons why you might want to split it so that you can do a junction or something like that. This will allow us to do that. Very similar to how any standard polygon editing in ArchiCAD does. If you click on the node on an edge, it will split the edge into two. That's what this one does. Moving along to the other end, this this hotspot here controls the corner angle. So at the moment, we don't have anything showing. So if we have it set to 180, which it is now, it's not doing anything. But if we move this out until it has a actual corner that it could draw, you can see the preview is showing me the next edge that it's going to add going around a corner there. And you can probably also see that as I move this, it is chunking the movement in 15-degree pieces, so it won't just swing around to any value and give you some wild angle that you need to somehow reproduce. It is locked to 15 degrees chunks. You can change that if you need to, but by default it will do this. So it means that you can more easily sort of freehand these without having to worry about getting bizarre angles showing up there. So we can draw that on. And then the last hotspot defines, again, the same as the first one did, the length of the edge. So you can see it's moving that edge out. It's also moving this edge up here, so you can see that going on, but it's changing the length of this edge here. So we can bring that in there. And then now that we have a new edge, all of that repeats again. So we've got the length, we have the, what did I call those again? Reducer, we have the split, then we have the angle and the length again. And then the last hotspot that you can see in here is this one here in the middle, and that will allow us to draw a junction. So we click on this one, and you can see in the tooltip there, it says add a branch. We can move it either to one side or the other and add in a branch there. So if I click there, we'll add a new branch, and then we can continue on with what we've got there. So we can extend this edge out to here. We can add a bend, add a bend here. Let's go to straighten up, and that sort of thing. So you can see, probably looking at that, that it allows you to do pretty much whatever you want with the shape of the cable tray. And then we can go to 3D and we can do even more there. So if I jump to our 3D view, we have our cable tray. I think we chose the ladder. Yes, we did. So you can see that running along the path that we've drawn in floor plan. So we've got a nice 3D representation. You can see those corners that it's going around that I gave it to. You can see the reducer here and that sort of thing. And now that we're in 3D, we can also adjust the rises of these. So you can see I have some more hotspots showing on here. These work in a similar way to what we had in floor plan. So we have a middle hotspot here, which will allow us to do the riser angle. And you can probably see, hopefully, that as I'm adjusting this riser, it is moving the entire object to fit where the riser would need, what the riser would need to do to give me the angle. And again, as with in the floor plan view, it is sort of ratcheting to 15-degree points as I do that. It's not just going to swing around indefinitely, although again, if you don't want it to do this, you can set it not to, but by default, it's going to lock to 15-degree chunks. So we can easily get to something sensible, and then we can come over onto a different edge. We can adjust the length of this one to make it a little bit longer, and then we can grab the middle hotspot and drop it down. So using this, you can see that you could very easily, once you've drawn up the plan view representation of your cable trays going around the areas that it needs to, you can then come into 3D and do the same to make sure that it does the things that it needs to there. And as you probably expect, but maybe not, when we go back to our floor plan view, you'll see that aside from the length change that we made, it hasn't changed. So you don't have to worry about the fact that because it's on an angle, it's longer now, so you have to resize it in floor plan or anything like that. It will essentially, when you put an angle on a rise, it will just make it longer, basically. So you don't need to worry about doing any additional sort of resizing of things to make it accommodate the rises that you've done in your 3D view. So as you can see, this is a relatively straightforward, I think, once you start using it, tool to allow you to do a lot of different types of things. What we're looking for in particular with this tool, once we release it, which will be sometime soon, is feedback on whether it does the kinds of things that you want to be able to do, if it represents in the way that you want it to represent, and that sort of thing. So as I saw before, we had the basic option turned on, but you can switch to a detailed symbol and get the additional detail showing there, so you can show that if you need to. But what we're looking for is your feedback on if it does what you would like it to do, if it needs to do extra things, if it needs to represent in a different way, and that sort of thing. So once we do release it, or even if you just have feedback based on seeing what you've seen today, we'd really appreciate that, because this is how we're going to decide what else we do with it, how it might interact with other tools. Maybe it ties into the electrical tool in some way, maybe it can be used in some other tool. But also the underlying idea of this. So having a sort of a single object that you can twist and stretch fairly easily to create paths and shapes and that sort of thing. We're interested in whatever ideas you might have about ways that we could use that for this and for other objects. So if you have any feedback at all, send that through to us on nz.support@centralinnovation.com. We'd love to hear from you and see what else we can do to make this a useful tool for you. All right, I'm just going to quickly check and see if we've got any questions before we finish up. Did I not turn the screen share off after I started again? Oh dear. Okay, sorry about that. What is my system doing? Okay, let me just give you a okay. Looks like the screen share paused on the electrical tool midway through and didn't update at all, which is very painful. My apologies. What I'll do is I'll very, very quickly go over this again, just so that you can see it. I don't have to, you have to attend another one of these just to see what it looks like. So very quickly, this is the cable tray that I have been, you have been hearing about but not seeing. So I'll change back to the simple view because the detailed symbol is a bit much to actually work with in floor plan view. Actually, I'll set it back to the default and then we'll just go from there very quickly. So it will by default show this T shape. We get plenty of options about how it works, and we have hotspots for the nodes, so we can adjust the length of pieces. We can add in reducers by moving this hotspot here. We can split edges by moving this hotspot here. We can add additional edges, turning around corners and things using this one. Everything is locked to 15-degree increments, and we can use the last hotspot to adjust the other edge's length. And on any edge that we have drawn, we can also grab hold of the center hotspot and add branches in as well by just moving it either to the left or to the right to allow it to create a new branch. And then you can just keep going, keep adding length and keep adding branches essentially as much as you need to do. Obviously, you can get yourself in trouble once they start overlapping each other, so it can get a little bit tricky to see what you're doing if you're doing that. But in most cases, you can just keep on drawing as much as you need to. Then you can flick into your 3D view. And again, by selecting the element, we get a bunch of hotspots showing. And we can click on the edges and adjust the rises of those by moving those hotspots there. So we can come in and adjust this rise here, again in 15-degree increments. And we can just very easily go through on the fly adjusting these. Because it's moving to those increments, you don't have to worry about sort of the fact that you're eyeballing it to a certain extent, because it's going to be locked to something sensible for the angle. And this will not affect the lengths shown in my floor plan view. So if I change to floor plan, aside from the edge length change that I made at the beginning, it will look the same. So you don't need to worry about those getting out of sync with each other. You can just go through and draw it up in the floor plan for the shape that you need in the plan view, then go into your 3D view and elevate them all to where they need to be and that sort of thing. But yeah, as I said, if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks very much for your time, and thanks for bearing with me when the screen share was not working properly. If you do have any feedback about how it works or how you think it could work or something like that, please send that through to us by emailing nz.support@centralinnovation.com. Your feedback will be much appreciated. And yeah, that's how we'll decide what we're going to do next with the tool. But thank you very much. That's all from me, and I hope to catch you at the next one.